It's a concept, it's art, and it's quintessentially Venetia Fair. Welcome to A Runner Does Music, where today we're going to look at the second album from American rock band The Venetia Fair called Every Sick, Disgusting Thought We've Got in Our Brain. This review is going to be a little different as it's one of the ones where I'm going to go track by track, talking about everything that it has to offer because a couple of reasons really. One, it's hard to articulate just how good a Venetia Fair album is without talking about everything, as well as the concept format of this album really lends to that being the better way of going about it. This album was Kickstarter funded back in 2012 after the band had left their record label, Red Blue Records, and honestly, this might be their best album without a shadow of a doubt, not just because of the production efforts being a more raw and focused affair, but also just the overall branching concept that we will be talking about throughout this entire review. So let's stop wasting any time and get to going on the first track and then some. The first track is Too Late to Dream. From the start, we get the exact type of vibe you'd come to expect from the band thus far in their discography, the perfect mix of big band elements meeting a typical rock and post-hardcore soundscape, with self-deprecating lyrics slapped on top of a bouncy overall rhythm, courtesy mainly of the drummer Chris Constantinido, putting in the work without any real stopping. The vocals are, of course, a big part of the pull for the Venetia Fair, but I'd argue that Benny is being outdone by the instrumentals as a whole here in the beginning, especially by Chris, but also by Michael Abusio on guitar, who constantly stands out amid the loud and violent sounds that make up an album by the band. It's a raucous start to the album and the perfect way to lead you into things. Track 2 is The Day I Set Them Free. Further lending to the fact that this band features a large array of sounds to pull from, this song kicks off with piano from Joe Asciutti, a sound that continues from intro into bridge, only really being shed when the chorus hits and we get a typical formula at large. In just 2 songs, you can really get a feel for how comfortable Benny Santoro is in the role of the circus's leader here, with his vocals sounding as polished as they've ever been, not quite betraying the rough exterior of the band's early work, but giving an undeniable sense of professional airs to it. This is sort of in line with how a lot of people look at Panic at the Disco's debut album with a sort of, oh wow, you can sound insane and good at the same time type of vibe. Where TVF excels and Panic would eventually fail, though, is the ability to retain both sides of that coin, with the bridge showing especially with the band is, with the bridge especially showing that the band is still retaining the feeling of manic energy while sounding like they're the headline act of an amphitheater show. Easy to take in, a joy to delve further into, just like a circus, if I may keep making the comparison. Next up we have One, We Used to Worship the Moon. This is the first of several songs within a story on this album, and begins by painting a picture of a scientist who is in his pursuit of knowledge, arrives at the conclusion that if God does exist, he can be found within the one thing he knows to be without end, the limitlessness of the human mind. The song steps up the manic vibes substantially, feeling like the first song on this album so far to really tap into the true soul of the band, with the earlier 2 songs not being bad at all, but this one feeling truly superior. The lyrics themselves are powerful at the very least, with my favorite set of lines being, get a fucking grip here, it's time to open your mind, cause I'm sick of looking for God at his home. I found the chorus to be equally impressive too, with the interjected vocal cries of pray how you'll pray to not just lend a further into the concept that continues later on, but to sound effortless and seamless within the song structure, just as it should be. This isn't just Benny the vocalist, it's the scientist, rasping into the void and into the endless night, and that's why it's so damn good. Now we have Pride Alone Won't Put This Fire Out. The straight up fire and anger in this song makes it such an enjoyable break from the album's core story, with it just being the pure angst-riddled cries of someone fed up with everything, with blatant lyrics and more simplistic instrumental moments letting the message hit home harder. The narration gives us the visual of someone who sees themselves as a weapon, and much like the lyrics say, their words and actions being gunpowder to ignite a situation. It's one of the more straight-on subjects on the album, but the full frontal assault still feels at home due to the band's reliance on a louder overall sound already. Some bands with this musical type of approach decide to go for a softer sound at certain points, but the Venetia Fair has always been loud and obnoxious, from more normal songs like this to the more story-driven moments, so it's yet another solid track. Now we have 2, The Dirt Won't Keep Your Secrets. Continuing on from the story, this time we see the scientist growing to form an obsessive love for this woman with a less than ideal path in life, to the point of wanting to paint a portrait of her. Within this state of infatuation, he finds himself falling further and further into an obsession until she leaves him high and dry, and yet he still paints, still is driven to create this painting for her, or more likely for himself, to find a satisfying result in his obsession, similar to his desire to find God in We Used to Worship the Moon. In many ways, the initial desires of the scientist find themselves replicated here in the second piece of the story's puzzle, giving more layers to the unfolding drama. The music also keeps the vibe from before, more fantastical sounds finding themselves in the background behind the grand vocals, as opposed to the rest of the tracklist's sound. Up next, we have Only in the Morning. This song is more of the impressive musicianship that's been on display, but I think it's worth noting that while not a part of the numbered songs in their in-album story, there are some lyrical moments that feel like they could connect themselves to the themes, such as in the first part of the song, with the lines, "She's alone if only in the morning, for all her learned morality. She keeps her line drawn far beyond the innocent flirtation, a reputation for quenching every thirst for free." Moving a little quickly here, we have Bleeding a Stone, and it feels like Benny really just wanted to let loose in the vocal department, and he does, getting the typical raspy high parts he usually employs, but also having moments such as in the bridge where it's more of a less emotive, straight-on drone that gives the song more character. This song also saw more of a spotlight, returning to Joe Achuti on keys, who really does some work in the bridge before complimenting the rest of the band on the chorus. Now It's the Sky Came Down. I've been harping on about Benny and his vocals and his lyricism, but I feel like this song is the best example outside of the story in the album. From start to finish, it's a slew of lines that make the curve of quality immediately grow steep, from the good, albeit less impressive 2 tracks before, and then going into this. All except for one of the songs left on the album belong to the storyline, so getting another dramatic increase in quality before going to something that gives an inevitable edge over the rest of the album is quite impressive. Now it's 3, Go On Paint Me a Picture. The story turns from light obsession and infatuation to a further obsessive state driven by being betrayed and left to rot alone, as the scientist now looks to find the answers to both the lost love and God themselves once again. The lyrics here are much more grounded, but still have a manic edge to them, with the repeated pleas and twisting sounds behind the words. He's yelling out that it's hard to ignore the constant internal questioning. He's begging for recognition and safety, but he's met with a damaging reality. There's no one there, and the story continues. 4, The Saints of Gomorrah. Mimicking the tendencies and story beats of the more biblical story, or the actual biblical story of Sodom and Gomorrah, the story switches from focus on one thing and gets more vague in a way that only benefits the general vibe and feeling of the story being told, as we're now brought to this comparative piece, which talks about cities being destroyed by the wrath of God and only one person being allowed to escape. This story connects to the story of the scientist and the painter, as in the quest to find the answer to God's identity and presence, or lack thereof. One could surmise that destruction may be the key to understanding. This obsession can quickly turn from one founded in love, and one that has been turned into a more bloody purpose. Here's 5, You Never Looked Like This. At this point, the narrator of the story has found a new core strength, that being the painting he's been working on all this time, one that isn't quite perfect but has become the fruit of his labors all the same. Benny sings about how he can't get the color of the lips right, how he's healed and fixed himself from the broken, pathetic mess he was left initially by her pure betrayal and departure, but it's slowly becoming a caricature that is more etched into his mind, the memory that is, than her actual visual appearance. He goes on to kill her, not being bothered by this course of action due to his mind being melded by obsession and the work on this painting, so much so that all possible thoughts of sadness or regret are replaced by fixation on this forged, man-made representation of her. Next up is Puking Platitudes. Once again, and now starting to exist in a state of, oh, okay, I guess, we get a very typical and expected song using the formula from the band, but this track feels off due to its place within the tracklist, right before the climax of the story, that is. It's a song that still holds possible thematic connections, but the interruption of the pure story that had 3 parts come in a row just now not only disrupts the flow, but leaves this alright and perfectly okay song feeling ever so middling in comparison. Thankfully, there's a nice instrumental bit provided by Mr. Chark, Michael, Chris, and Joe before the final set of choruses to hit to pull you back in and give you something to walk away from the track with. Finally, we have 6, I Could End My Search Tonight. After reaching the very depths of his search for God and answers and having killed the girl who he loved, we now see the narrator of this story realize just how deep he's fallen, realizing his unborn child was resting within the now cold corpse of his former lover. Through a possible mental breakdown, revelation, or perhaps combination of the two, the scientist believes he's being spoken to by the unborn child, who proclaims that God doesn't exist within the mind of their infant body, but rather the end of your search can be found within your own mind. Lines like "he's alive behind your eyes" and "you could end your search tonight, concrete floors crack any skull" give the mental painting that the narrator has chosen to end their life and try to discover God through death, and the possible revelation of the end. Song structure feels truly epic while the near symphonic elements collide, and this is a fantastic way to end the album. Overall, this is the best piece of work by the band and one of the most underrated bodies of work in post-hardcore, just overall. And it's truly unfortunate that the Venetia Fair has since gone quiet and broken up, because if they kept going, I believe they could sit on the big four of the genre with ease, outdoing even the likes of Dance Gavin Dance. It goes without saying that this band is special for its ideas, composition, and how each member brings in something unique and powerful to the group as a whole. For these reasons, every sick, disgusting thought we've got in our brain by the Venetia Fair gets a rating of 8.3 out of 10. And that's the review. Let me know what you guys think down in the comment section below. Be sure to check out my other reviews I've done for the Venetia Fair, and let me know down in the comment section if there's something that you want to see. I do take commissions. Hope you're having a good day. I hope you're staying hydrated. I'll see you next time.